Hi, it's Dwyer, GamblersAdvisory.com on Roku, Dwyer Boxing News, and other sports. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. It is Cinco de Mayo. It's the day after the Floyd Mayweather-Robert Guerrero fight. Now, just a little background. In baseball, back in an era when Buck Showalter instructed his pitcher to intentionally walk Barry Bonds, correctly it turned out, with the bases loaded, I was watching Bonds during an at-bat, and I remember thinking to myself, is he the greatest hitter I have ever seen? Right? Not in history. I didn't see Babe Ruth, right? Or Ted Williams. Or, quite frankly, prime Willie Mays or Hank Aaron, right? I saw them in the 70s, but not prime Mays and Aaron. So for me, just my own two eyes, I asked myself, is this the best hitter I had ever seen? At the time, Barry Bonds had an on-base percentage over 500, which is unheard of, right? He had a batting average that was among the leaders in the National League. And of course, Bonds was doing so with power, with RBI production, right? Now, my point to you is simply, in your entire life, only a handful or so, maybe 10 athletes, will you come across who you seriously stop and have to ask yourself, is this athlete the best I've seen in his or her sport in their event? Right? You really have to stop and ask yourself that question a few times in your life. And I mean a few times in your life. So, for me, I've asked myself that question a few times, right? Some of the names that I've come up with are Usain Bolt in men's track, right? Wayne Gretzky, Joe Montana, at wide receiver, Jerry Rice, and then years later, Randy Moss, right? Florence Griffin Joyner in women's track. I think she's still the record holder in the 100, right? Michael Jordan at guard, LeBron James at forward, and for me, this is my list, Hakeem Olajuwon at center, right? Well, yesterday, Floyd Mayweather gave the type of performance that had me asking that question after watching 40 or more years of boxing. Now, Floyd was already impressive. You know, I already thought very highly of Floyd. But now he's in a different place. Right now, to me, he's in that place where you know he's a Hall of Famer. You know he's an all-time great. But he's where Jordan was. He's where perhaps LeBron is right now, where you're asking yourself, how far is he going to take this? Right? This is kind of like uncharted territory. Now let's talk about the fight. Let's talk about my pre-fight expectations, right? And let me just say this. To the gamblers, the hedge held, right? The over 11.5 actually held. You should have, even if you lost money, you should have at least gotten some money back from the casino. That's why we hedge bet, right? I know there are a lot of people who say, why hedge? It's because of nights like this, Right, now let's talk about my pre-fight expectation. Right, I personally thought, and I said so here online, that Floyd was getting older. That if there was a time to beat Floyd Mayweather, that time was right now, after a prison stint, right, where presumably he didn't have access to a high-class gym like the Mayweather gym in Las Vegas, right, after a year away from the ring. Right, he's older now, right? That Marquez fight was several years ago. After that layoff, he's older now. He's 36. He was out of the ring for a year. And of course, I thought Floyd showed slippage in his last fight against Miguel Cotto. Look at the CompuBox numbers. They're down for Floyd versus Floyd's historical performance. Look at Floyd's legs in that fight. Not the best. He's bullied. He's up on the ropes. Right? Juan Manuel Marquez, who thought Floyd won the fight, who's a big fan of Floyd, who quite frankly has been a victim of Floyd's, thought that fight, the Cotto fight, hung in the air until the last 3 rounds or so of the fight. Right? Then I thought that Robert Guerrero, who had been on the rise, right? Keep in mind, Guerrero, like Floyd, has been a champion for a very long time, right? Different weight classes, but Guerrero, quite frankly, is bigger than Floyd. They might be the same height, but Guerrero seems to be naturally bigger than Floyd. And Guerrero is a southpaw. And Floyd, in the past, has had problems against left-hand dominant fighters. Cotto, I know he fights in an orthodox stance, but he himself admits that he's really a southpaw. Zab Judah, who knocked Floyd down. So, for me personally, I thought the main play, not the hedge, but the main play in this fight, before the fight, was to take Robert Guerrero to win at 4.5 and up to 1. In other words, bet $1 to win 4.5 in profit. Plus, get the dollar you bet back. I thought the casinos were making a mistake. Let me take you through what I saw last night. Round 1 opens. Guerrero comes out. He's fighting exactly the way I hoped he would fight. He fights an intelligent fight. Floyd actually does what Floyd does. He starts lingering around the side of the ropes. Guerrero comes out, hides his head behind his right hand. You'll see Guerrero moving his hand like this. Comes up to Floyd. Guerrero's the aggressor. But then Guerrero does something smart, in my opinion. It's the right move. He doesn't jump on Floyd. Because had he jumped on Floyd, he would have been no different than Ricky Hatton or Miguel Cotto. Right? You know, he would have been playing Floyd's game. That's when Floyd flashes things like check left hooks that knock you out. Right? So Guerrero, southpaw, doesn't give up his southpaw angles. He actually stays away from Mayweather while pursuing Mayweather. I thought it was brilliant. Quite frankly, as someone who had money on Guerrero, I thought the first 2 rounds were 2 of the best tactical rounds I've ever seen an opponent throw at Floyd Mayweather. Right? I thought Guerrero came in, right idea, right game plan, right mental state. Guerrero's not there for a payday. He's actually there to win the fight. Here's the catch. You know, sometimes you fight great rounds and you don't win them, right? I didn't give Guerrero either the first round or the second round, but yet I thought Guerrero was fighting the right fight. In other words, he's not bum rushing Floyd Mayweather. He's not in there thinking, I'm the bigger man and I'm going to impose myself on Floyd. He's not grappling with Floyd inside, and understand, Floyd has a great inside game, right? I think we saw what an inside game could do for you in the earlier fight, the Abner Maris-Ponce de Leon fight. I'll deal with that in a different video. But unlike Ricky Hatton, Guerrero's not close enough to Floyd where they're grappling, right? Guerrero staying outside, maintaining angles, trying to throw a left jab, trying to let Floyd know he's there, but he's not going to jump on Floyd, right? He's using length. Now let's talk about Mayweather's response. The response, quite frankly, is why Floyd Mayweather is Floyd Mayweather, right? Here's what caught my eye. You know, Floyd Mayweather doesn't have a tell, some characteristic that lets you know it's coming, for his lead straight right hand, right? You know, it's like, you know how in baseball, sometimes batters will say they could tell a changeup was coming because the pitcher slowed down his arm speed, right? Or they could tell certain pitches were coming because the pitcher throws that pitch at a different arm angle. With Floyd Mayweather, there's no tell on that lead straight right hand. None whatsoever, right? And understand the way Floyd stands. It's not just the punch, it's the whole stance. You could tell that Guerrero, who's an elite fighter. Understand Guerrero this morning after the loss, let me tell you, he's one of boxing's best fighters, pound for pound, in my opinion, today, right? Guerrero, who's an elite fighter, could not tell when Floyd was going to throw that straight right hand. It hits him repeatedly, right? You could tell that Guerrero couldn't even tell if Floyd was going to throw a left hand or a right hand. Also, understand how Floyd is wired, right? Guerrero's applying pressure on him. It doesn't matter where Mayweather is, right? Mayweather is calm. He's one of those guys who the bullets are flying and Mayweather is still strategic. There's no panic, right? So Mayweather leans forward. Mayweather then starts landing with regularity against the guy using length. That straight right hand, that's the punch of the fight. Right then, it's a bit surprising because Mayweather's facing a southpaw who can throw an excellent uppercut, right? An excellent uppercut if you dive in. Don't believe me? Look at the knockdown in the Guerrero-Vicente Escobedo fight, right? That's a left uppercut. Understand Mayweather is so good defensively, right? It's a full body defense that after Mayweather, and this happens repeatedly in the fight, after Mayweather lands that lead straight right hand, Mayweather then, who I thought was aging, who had been out of the ring for a year, right? Mayweather ducks under Guerrero's counters. Literally, doesn't even need a hand up. Throws the right hand and then ducks. Literally bends at the waist and has his head low, right? This is a Pernell Whitaker vertical game. Literally repeatedly ducks under whatever Guerrero throws back, right? Just to get an idea on the accuracy of what Mayweather's doing. Mayweather landed not 40% of his power punches, not 50% of his power punches against a world-class fighter, a champion in several weight classes, the guy who was the interim belt holder since Mayweather was the champ and was then incarcerated and couldn't defend the belt. Mayweather landed 60% of his power punches. Right? That accuracy rate, understand, in boxing is like Secretariat winning the Belmont Stakes by 20-odd lengths. Right? It's staggering. It's crazy. Let me point out, too, that Mayweather was so surgical that I was watching the fight with my girl. Right? She's a fight fan. And she knew that I wanted Guerrero to win so I could cash my betting ticket. And by the third round, she turned to me and said, you know, Rich, Mayweather's just so much faster. The hand speed is still there at 36. The crispness is still there at 36. Let me just say, too, that Mayweather, and I thought it was interesting, right? Later in the fight, as this fight went on, understand that Mayweather, who started the fight knowing who Robert Guerrero was. In other words, Mayweather clearly, I don't care what they say. I don't care what Mayweather says. Mayweather clearly studied Guerrero and knew exactly when Guerrero was going to throw punches. Guerrero might have a tell on his left hand. In other words, he might tip off when he's going to throw it. Because from early in this fight, Mayweather was always moving before the punch got there. Early. You know you're dealing with a guy who has figured it out when Mayweather is able to, close to the ropes, have his hands down and not get hit. Right? It was as if he knew what Guerrero was thinking before Guerrero was able to throw the punch. I think Mayweather studied film. I think Mayweather noticed certain habits that Guerrero has. Maybe Guerrero bends a knee or moves his feet. I was trying to track Mayweather's eyes, and sometimes Mayweather's eyes were down at Guerrero's feet. But one thing was certain. Mayweather's dodging Guerrero's punches from early. Well, I talk about fighters being adaptive, reactive. You're not going to find a fighter who adjusts better in fights than this one, Floyd Mayweather. So there's a moment in this fight in the middle rounds where Mayweather, against a southpaw, right, has the angles figured out to the point where after throwing lead right hands, and then after using that right hand as a counter, Mayweather in the middle of this fight throws a beautiful left uppercut that catches Guerrero. And understand, he literally gets it inside of Guerrero's right jab. I thought it was stunning. Also, Mayweather, I said that Mayweather had low volume. Folks, look at the CompuBox numbers. Even in this fight, Mayweather had low volume. If you watch the fight again, you're going to see that Mayweather throws very few jabs. Very few. His punch count total was under 500 for the entire fight. Think about it. When's the last time a guy throws less than 500 punches and you think that he dominated nearly every round? Understand the judges' scoring. 117 to 111. That's a 6-round difference in a 12-round fight. That means that all 3 judges gave Mayweather 9 of the 12 rounds. And he was able to do that with less than 500 punches thrown. So all I can say is, with regard to my pre-fight prediction, with regard to my belief that Mayweather was slowing down, with regard to my belief that Mayweather was rusty and was past his prime, all I can say is, man, was I foolish, right? let me just say this too about Mayweather's level of dominance. I want Mayweather to realize that to keep our attention, and he has it clearly, right? Yesterday was a sellout, right? We understand, I believe, that we're looking at Jordan here, right? He's going to have to do something outside the box now, because he was so dominant yesterday that I at this point wonder whether even a Saul Alvarez, unbeaten fighter, champion at a higher weight class, 154, than was fought yesterday, 147, even though Mayweather has a belt at 154, right? You wonder whether even Canelo is credible as an opponent. Who is credible as an opponent for Floyd Mayweather? Mayweather seems to be, like Secretariat, lapping the field. So what I want Mayweather to think about doing, and I'm just being selfish here, because I'm a fan and I want to see excitement, an event I can remember, right? What I hope Mayweather thinks of doing, because Mayweather's not fighting anyone he's actually fighting. He's really fighting Sugar Ray Robinson and the greats in history, right? What I want him to do is to think about what Ray Robinson did and what Ray Robinson at the time thought was his last fight, right? Ray Robinson was about to retire. He had been the champ at welter. He was the champ at middle. So he decided he would fight light heavyweight champion Joey Maxim. I know it sounds ridiculous. It would be like Sergio Martinez deciding he's going to fight a light heavyweight champion, right? Ray Robinson decided he was going to fight light heavyweight champion Joey Maxim, right? Just give it a shot, his last fight before he retired, right? And that's what he went and did. Generations later, believe it or not, after he fell from grace in the middleweight division, Bernard Hopkins, in what he thought was his last fight, decided he would fight light heavyweight champion Antonio Tarver. Mayweather at this point is going to have to do something major because he's such a technician at 147. I don't think he has a credible opponent at 147, right? I was just thinking it through. Lucas Mathis, if he gains weight to 147, if he beats Lamont Peterson, Timothy Bradley, I believe Mayweather beats Canelo at 154. I'm not sure if Mayweather has a credible opponent at 154. So if I'm Floyd Mayweather, following in the footsteps of Ray Robinson and Bernard Hopkins, I'd have to think about doing something foolish, like risking an unbeaten record while still the king at 147 by fighting Sergio Martinez, who right now has his critics for the belt at 160, right? Let me just say, as crazy as it sounds, I believe in history, fight fans don't respect unbeaten marks as much as they respect the idea of a fighter going outside the box to meet a challenge, right? I think Swen Aki, I think Joe Calzaghe, I think Rocky Marciano, all of those guys have their critics, right? The unbeaten mark doesn't necessarily get the stamp of best ever, right? Ray Robinson lost to Joey Maxim, still one of boxing's more memorable fights. I believe that only enhanced the Ray Robinson reputation, right? Mayweather's at a crossroads here. I'm just wondering how far he's going to take this, because he's certainly dominated. He's the king of his domain at 147. He proved that definitively yesterday. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Understand, too, that I don't want you to agree with me. I want to hear what you're actually thinking, right? If you feel that, Mayweather's not an all-time great, if you feel that yesterday's fight had a different dynamic, right? If you feel that Robert Guerrero wasn't a worthy opponent and that there is some worthy opponent at 147, or 154, who would challenge Mayweather and who would bring enough notoriety so that the fight has a historical gravitas before it takes place. Share all that information with us. Okay? You know, my point is simply, let's use this YouTube format. Let's use the comment section to this video to literally exchange all of our post-fight thoughts, right? You don't have to agree with the host, right? This is your forum. This is no doubt being watched on your computer or your TV. Let me know what you think. Let's treat this like the saloon down the end of the block where everyone's sitting around a bar just exchanging their thoughts on the sport of boxing. I'll say this. I was alive in the 1980s. I saw Ray Leonard, I saw Hagler, I saw Hearns, I saw a bunch of guys. I still think Hearns would give Floyd Mayweather a very tough fight, just off of fight styles. But wow, for a boxer to have this level of dominance in fight after fight, for a boxer to be able to dominate a fight like this with less than 500 punches thrown, right? For a fighter to have the advantages on CompuBox, the CompuBox numbers, over his opponent in fight after fight, and to make excellent fighters. Robert Guerrero, by the way, in my opinion, is a future Hall of Famer. Miguel Cotto is a future Hall of Famer. But yet these guys looked amateurish against Floyd Mayweather. This, to me, is like Secretariat coming down the home stretch, right? This fighter really is, you know, on some kind of Jordan plane where very few are. Certainly, that's the way it seems to me. Let me hear from you. Thanks for watching.